Welcome, friends and guests, to this public reading of Homer's great epic poem, the Iliad. My name is Dr. Sonia Pertonidis, and I'm a lecturer and convener of the Ancient Greek program here in the Centre for Classical Studies. I'm delighted that you've been able to come tonight. On this day, the 22nd of March, all around the world, more than 3,000 people are reciting passages from the Iliad in their own languages or in ancient Greek. And it's part of an international festival of ancient literature organised in Lyon, in France. The Centre for Classical Studies at the ANU is delighted to be participating in this festival. Like many universities across the globe, we have a vibrant Latin and ancient Greek language and literature program, and we are so proud of our dedicated and hard-working language students. So tonight you're in for a real treat. 10 of our students will be reciting passages from Book 22 of the Iliad in ancient Greek and in English. Let me introduce you to our readers. We have Rosemary and Daniel from Intermediate Greek, Liam, Rachel D and Rachel B from Advanced Greek. We have our master's students, Nathan and Jerry. And we have 3 of our PhD students, Fiona, Rod and Karen. We're so glad that you've come tonight to hear the readings and to support our students. Book 22 is the climax of the Iliad. It tells the story of the death of the Trojan hero Hector at the hands of Achilles. At the Stygian gates of Troy, Hector's parents, Priam and Hecate, implore their son not to face the grim Achilles, but instead to retreat inside the walls of Troy. After careful consideration, Hector resolves to stand his ground. But when Achilles does appear, shaking his ashen spear and blazing like the sun, fear grips Hector and a chase begins. 3 times around the walls of Troy they run, with all the gods and the Achaeans and the Trojans looking on, until Zeus intervenes and weighs 2 portions of death in the golden scales, and Hector's fate is sealed. When Hector reminds Achilles of the code of honour that applies to the proper burial of a slain warrior, Achilles' answer is brutal. I cannot forgive you. As there are no trustworthy oaths between men and lions, so there can be no love between you and me. And so Achilles' actions match his words when he finally succeeds in killing Hector. I challenge anyone not to be moved by the reaction of Hector's mother and father when they witness the treatment of their son's body by Achilles. And it is significant that this book depicts the grief of Andromache, Hector's wife, not only because she is Hector's devoted companion, and she bore him a son, Astyanax, but because this scene so clearly and movingly depicts that it is women and children who are left behind, who are left to grieve and to mourn the effects of violence by men. And this is as true today as it was in Homer's time. Andromache, witnessing her husband's body being dragged off behind Achilles' chariot, suffers most of all. But that's enough of an introduction from me. Let's hear it in the words of Homer, a poet who has captivated readers and influenced writers and artists for more than 2,000 years.
Hos hoimen katawastuka kuskotes nebroi, hydro apexukon topion takeon totedixam, teknimenoika leisina palixesin, autar kaioi teikeus asun isam, sate omoisi clinantes, Hector dautu menai, olloiene voi repetesen, iliu pro paroite, laon tescaiaon. Autarpe leiona pros euda poibos Apollon, tiptepe mepe leius vie, possin tacees idiotes, autos tnetos eon, theon ambrodon, uden upome egnos hos theos eimi, sudas vertes mene aines, elutoi uti melei, proon tonos hus e poversas, hoi detoi eis astu alem, subedeuro liastes, mem mectene eis, epe utoi morsimus eimi, donde megoptesas, prosepe podus opus Achilleus, eblaxas meca ergete on ole ota tipanton, enta de nymprepsas, apothekeus eceti polloi gaian odax heilon, prin ilion eis apicestai, nymdeme mem mega kydos apeleo, dus thesaos re dios, epe uti tissim gedes asopixo, santi Simon, ei voi dynamisce pareie.
He spoke, and stalked away against the city with high thoughts in mind, and in tearing speed, like a racehorse with his chariot who runs lightly as he pulls the chariot over the flat land. Such was the action of Achilles in feet and quick knees. The aged Priam was the first of all whose eyes saw him as he swept across the flat land in full shining, like that star which comes on in the autumn and whose conspicuous brightness far outshines the stars that are numbered in the night's darkening, the star they give the name of Orion's dog, which is brightest among the stars and yet is wrought as a sign of evil and brings on the great fever for unfortunate mortals. Such was the flare of the bronze that girt his chest and his running. The old man groaned aloud and with both hands high uplifted, beat his head and groaned amain and spoke supplicating his beloved son, who there still in front of the gateway stood fast in determined fury to fight with Achilles. The old man, stretching his hands out, called pitifully to him, Hector, beloved child, do not wait the attack of this man alone, away from the others. You might encounter your destiny beaten down by Peleon, since he is far stronger than you are. A hard man. I wish he were as beloved of the immortal as loved by me. Soon he would lie dead, and the dogs and the vultures would eat him, and bitter sorrow so be taken from my heart. He has made me desolate of my sons, who were brave and many. He killed them, or sold them away among the far-lying islands. Even now there are two sons, Lycaon and Polydorus, whom I cannot see among the Trojans pent up in the city. Sons, Laope, a princess among women, bore to me. But if these are alive somewhere in the army, then I can set them free for bronze and gold. It is there inside, since Autis the aged and renowned gave much with his daughter. But if they are dead already and gone down to the house of Hades, it is sorrow to our hearts who bore them, myself and their mother. But to the rest of the people, a sorrow that will be fleeting beside their sorrow for you, if you go down before Achilles. Come then inside the wall, my child, so that you can rescue the Trojans and the women of Troy, neither when the high glory of Peleus' son and yourself be robbed of your very life. Oh, take pity on me, the unfortunate, still alive, still sentient, but ill-starred, whom the father Cronos' son on the threshold of old age will blast with hard fate, after I have looked upon evils and seen my sons destroyed, and my daughters dragged away captive, and the chambers of marriage wrecked, and the innocent children taken and dashed to the ground in the hatefulness of war, and the wives of my sons dragged off by the accursed hands of the Achaeans, and myself, last of all. My dogs in front of my doorway will rip me raw, after some man with stroke of the sharp bronze spear or with spear cast has torn the life out of my body. Those dogs I raised in my halls to be at my table, to guard my gates, who will lap my blood in the savagery of their anger and then lie down in my courts. For a young man, all is decorous when he is cut down in battle and torn with the sharp bronze, and lies there dead, and though dead, still all that shows about him is beautiful. But when an old man is dead and down, and the dogs mutilate the grey head and the grey beard, and the hearts that are secret. This, for all sad mortality, is the sight most pitiful.
So the old man spoke, and in his hand, seizing the great tore them from his head, but could not move the spirit in Hector. And side by side with him, his mother in tears was mourning, and laid the fold of her bosom bare, and with one hand held out her breast, and wept tears for him, and called to him in winged words, Hector, my child, look upon these and obey, and take pity on me, if ever I gave you the breast to quiet your sorrow. Remember all these things, dear child, and from inside the wall beat off this grim man. Do not go out as champion against him, O hard one, for if he kills you, I can no longer mourn you on the deathbed, sweet branch, O child of my bearing. Nor can your generous wife mourn you, but a big way from us, beside the ships of the Argives, the running dogs will feed on you. So these two in tears and with much supplication called out to their dear son, but could not move the spirit in Hector. But he awaited Achilles as he came on, gigantic. But as a snake waits for a man by his hole in the mountains, glutted with evil poisons, and the fell venom has got inside him, and coiled about the hole he stares malignant, so Hector would not give ground, but kept unquenched the fury within him, and sloped his shining shield against the jut of the bastion.
Okthesastara aipe proskon megalatora thumon. O maegon, aimen kai pulas kai takea duo. Poludamos, moi protos elenken anasthesai. Hosma ekelue trosi poti petolin hegesastai. Nukthu hupo tende oloen hotite orecto dios Achilleus. Allego upithomen eta ampolu kerdion ehen. Now since, by my own recklessness, I have ruined my people, I feel shame before the Trojans and the Trojan women with trailing robes, that someone who is less of a man than I will say of me, Hector believed in his own strength and ruined his people. Thus they will speak, and as for me, it would be much better at that time to go against Achilles and slay him, and come back, or else be killed by him in glory in front of the city. Or if I again set down my shield, massive in the middle, and my ponderous helm, and lean my spear up against the rampart, and go out as I am to meet Achilles the blameless, and promise to give back Helen, and with her all her possessions, all those things that once, in the hollow ships, Alexandros brought back to Troy, and these were the beginning of the quarrel. To give these to Atreus' sons to take away, and for the Achaeans also to divide up all that is hidden within the city, and take an oath thereafter for the Trojans in conclave, not to hide anything away, but distribute all of it, as much as the lovely citadel keeps guarded within it. Yet still, why does the heart within me debate on these things? I might go up to him, and he take no pity upon me, nor respect my position, but kill me naked so, as if I were a woman, once I strip my armour from me. There is no way any more from a tree or a rock to talk to him gently, whispering like a young man and a young girl, in the way a young man and a young maiden whisper together. Better to bring on the fight with him as soon as it may be. We shall see to which one the Olympian grants the glory.
So he pondered, waiting. But Achilles was closing upon him, in the likeness of the Lord of battles, the helm-shining warrior, and shaking from above his shoulder the dangerous Pelian ash spear, while the bronze that closed about him was shining like the flare of blazing fire or the sun in its rising. And the shivers took hold of Hector when he saw him, and he could no longer stand his ground there, but left the gates behind and fled, frightened, and Peleus' son went after him in the confidence of his quick feet. As when a hawk in the mountains, who moves the lightest of things flying, makes his effortless swoop for a trembling dove, but she slips away from beneath and flies, and he, shrill screaming close after her, plunges for her again and again, half furious to take her. So Achilles went straight for him in fury. But Hector fled away under the Trojan wall and moved to his knees rapidly. They raced along by the watching point and the windy fig tree, always away from under the wall, and along the wagon way, and came to the 2 sweet running well springs. There are double springs of water that jet up, the springs of whirling Scamandros. One of these runs hot water, and steam on all sides of it rises, as if from a fire that was burning inside it. But the other, in the summertime, runs with water like hail, or chilled snow, or ice that forms from water. Beside these, in this place and close to them, are the washing hollows of stone and magnificent, where the wives of the Trojans and their lovely daughters washed their clothes to shining in the old days, when there was peace, before the coming of the sons of the Achaeans. They ran beside these, one escaping, the other after him. It was a great man who fled, but far better he who pursued him, rapidly, since here was no festal beast, no ox-hide they strove for these are prizes that are given men for their running. No, they ran for the life of Hector, breaker of horses. As when about the turnposts racing single-foot horses run at full speed, when a great prize is laid up for their winning, a tripod or a woman in games for a man's funeral, so these 2 swept, whirling about the city of Priam, in the speed of their feet, while all the gods were looking upon them.
Toisoi de mutoner he pater andron he theonte, ot poi he philon andra diokomenon perikechos, ophthalmoisin hophoromai, emande o lufertai herto ectoros, host moi pollavon epi merid eken, ides en corufesi pollutuxu, alote de aute en volei acrotate. Nun aute e Deus Achilleus astu pericria moio hosin tacesin dioce, alagete fras teste theoi. Kai metai metiaste hei min epiphanatio sao somen. Heminede pleide Achillei damasomen estelon eonta, tonde aute proseipete adragonkis athene, o pater argeicoraune keleinethes oio epes, andra fenton eonta palai heburemon aise, abs Epheles pantoio dusekeos axana lusai, ete arte utopantes epainomen theoi aloi, tende apame bomenos, pros efe nefegelerta Zeus. Tarese tritogenea philontekos, unuti uno, profuni nutheomai, ethelo de toi hebiosenai, proxon epe de toi nos, epleto medete eroi, os epon oprune paros Nemaion Athene, pede cat, Olympio Carneon Aixasa.
But swift Achilles kept unremittingly after Hector, chasing him as a dog in the mountains was thrust from his covert, a deer's fawn, follows him through the folding ways and valleys. And though the fawn crouch down under a bush and be hidden, he keeps running and noses him out until he comes on him. So Hector could not lose himself from Swissfoot alone. If ever he made a dash right on for the gates of Gardeners, to get quickly under the strong-built bastions, endeavouring that they from above with missiles thrown might somehow defend him, each time Achilles will get in front and force him to turn back into the plain, and himself kept his flying course next to the city. As in a dream, a man who is not able to follow one who runs away from him, nor can the runner escape, nor the other pursue him. So he could not run him down in his speed, nor get the other get clear. How then could Hector have escaped the dead spirits, had not Apollo, for this last and utmost time, stood by him close, and driven strength into him, and made his knees light? But brilliant Achilles kept shaking his head at his own people, and would not let them throw their bitter projectiles at Hector, for fear that the thrower might win the glory, and himself come second. But when for the fourth time they had come round to the well springs, then the father balanced his golden scales, and in them he set two fateful portions of death, which lay as men prostrate. One for Achilles, one for Hector, breaker of horses, by the middle. And Hector's death day was heavier and dragged downward toward death, and Phoebus Apollo forsook him.
Leona dicicame Theo globis atene, ancu da histamene et pectorenta proseuda. Nunde noi elolca divi faid Achilleo, oises fai nega kudos achaiosi protineas. Hectora de osante Magesta aton pereonta, hoi numeti gesti pefumenon amne genestai, ud ecet mala pola pathoi, heca ergos Apollon, pro culin dominos patros dios agioiloco. Alla sumen nun stethi cae amve, tonde devotoi emine oichomene. Epitheso en antibion magistastai. Osfa Athene, hoide pefeto chaire desmod, steda ar epinidies calcon loginos erestes. Eda araton mele elete, Hestato de Hectora dion, dei fubo, ecuia demas cae aterea fonen, ampul de histamine per teloenta pros eluda. Ethe malade sediastete ocus Achilleus, astu peri priamoio posim tahesi diocon, al agede steomen cae alexomes menontes, ten daute prosete megas corus aeolos sector. Deifo an emenmui tu paros coru filtatos estar, gnoton hus hecabe de priamos tece perdas. Nun dedicae malum noeo fresi tinesastai, hos et lese nuhene, et deides ophthalmoisi, techeos exelfein, aloe dentosve menusi. Then in turn the goddess Freya Athena answered him, My brother, it is true our father and the lady our mother, taking my knees in turn, and my companions about me, entreated that I stay within. Such was the terror all around of them. But the heart in me was worn away by hard sorrow for you. But now, let us go straight on and fight hard. Let there be no sparing of our spears, so that we can find out whether Achilles will kill us both and carry our bloody war spoils back to the hollow ships, or will himself go down under your spear.
Os pamene kai terdos unei eges et Athene, hoi totetes cedon esam, et pallelo isini ontes. Dom proderos Kaios Hector. Uuteti pelleus hyie, ove somai posta to paroster. Trisperi vastu mega pria huudion uudepot etnen. Meinai eller komenum. Nyt au teme tyymosaneikes teemene anties seiju. Helo liiken äkin halojen. Anna agedeuro teuse idomete. Toikaa arstoin vatturo esuntai. Ka episkopo harmoni ahon. Ugas ego se pablon aeitio aiken moisdeus. Do ei kammoni en sende psyken apelomai. An ekai arkes syleso pyytää teuke akileu. Necron akaioisin doso palin. Poste syresdei. Tonda poltera idon proseper podas opus akileus. Hector memoi alaste, syn emo synas agoreue. Os uc esti leusi, kai andrasi ortia pista, uudelykoi te kai arnes, amoprone tymon ekusi. Alla kakaprone usi, diamperes alleluisin. Os uc este macaise filemenai, udenti noin, ortia essuntai. Pringe heteronge pesonta, haimatos aasai areaa, ta naurinon polemisteen. Pantoies aretes, minnes teo nynste malacre, aikme tentemenai kai tarsale on polemisteen, uutoi et estupalyxis, apardese annasetene, enkeis emmoi damaai, nynta troa antakotises, kede emon hetaron, us ektanes enke tyo.
So he spoke, and balanced the spear far-shadowed and threw it, but glorious Hector kept his eyes on him and avoided it. For he dropped, watchful, to his knee, and the bronze spear flew over his shoulder and stuck in the ground. But Pallas Athene snatched it and gave it back to Achilles, unseen by Hector, shepherd of the people. But now Hector spoke out, the blameless son of Peleus. You missed, and it was not, O Achilles, like the immortals, from Zeus that you knew my destiny. But you thought so, or rather, you are someone clever in speech, and spoke to swindle me, to make me afraid of you, and forget my valor and war strength. You will not stick your spear in my back as I run away from you, but drive it into my chest as a storm straight in against you. If the god gives you that, and now look out for my brazen spear, I wish it might be taken full length in your body. And indeed the war would be a lighter thing for the Trojans if you were dead, seeing that you are their greatest affliction. So he spoke, and balanced the spear far-shadowed and threw it, and struck the middle of Pleiades' shield, nor missed it. But the spear was driven far back from the shield, and Hector was angered, because his swift weapon had been loosed from his hand in a vain cast. He stood discouraged, and had no other ash spear. But lifting his voice, he called aloud unto Phoebus of the pale shield, and asked him for a long spear. But Phoebus was not near him. And Hector knew the truth inside his heart, and spoke aloud. No use. Here at last the gods have summoned me deathward. I thought Phoebus the hero was here, close beside me. But he is behind the wall, and it was Athene cheating me. And now evil death is close to me, and no longer far away. And there is no way out. So it must long since have been pleasing to Zeus, and Zeus' son who strikes from afar, this way. Though before this they defended me gladly, but now my death is upon me. Let me at least not die without a struggle, inglorious, but do some big thing first, that men to come shall know of it.
So he spoke, and pulling out the sharp sword that was slung at the hollow of his side, huge and heavy, and gathering himself together, he made his swoop, like a high-flown eagle who launches himself out of the murk of the clouds on the flat land to catch away a tender lamb or a shivering hare. So Hector made his swoop, swinging his sharp sword, and Achilleus charged, the heart within him loaded with savage fury. In front of his chest, the beautiful, elaborate, great shield covered him, and with the glittering helm with 4 horns he nodded. The lovely golden fringes were shaken about it, which Hephaestus had driven close along the horn of the helmet. And, as a star moves among stars in the night's darkening, Hesper, who is the fairest star who stands in the sky, such was the shining from the pointed spear Achilleus was shaking in his right hand with evil intention toward brilliant Hector. He was eyeing Hector's splendid body to see where it might best give way, but all the rest of the skin was held in the armor. Brazen and splendid, he stripped when he cut down the strength of Patroclus, yet showed where the collarbones hold the neck from the shoulders, the throat, where death of the soul comes most swiftly. In this place, brilliant Achilleus drove the spear as he came on in fury, and clean through the soft part of the neck the spear point was driven. Yet, the ash spear, heavy with bronze, did not sever the windpipe, so that Hector could still make exchange of words spoken. But he dropped in the dust, and brilliant Achilleus vaunted above him, "Hector, surely you thought, as you killed Patroclus, you would be safe, and since I was far away, you thought nothing of me, O fool. For an avenger was left, far greater than he was, behind him and away by the hollow shield. And it was I, and I have broken your strength. On you the dogs and the vultures shall feed, and foully rip you. The Achaeans will bury Patroclus." In his weakness, Hector of the shining helm spoke to him, "I entreat you, by your life, by your knees, by your parents, do not let the dogs feed on me by the ships of the Achaeans, but take yourself the bronze and gold that are laid there in abundance, those gifts that my father and the lady my mother will give you, and give my body back to be taken home again, so that the Trojans and the wives of the Trojans may give me in death my right of burning." But looking darkly at him, swift-footed Achilles answered, "No more entreating of me, you dog, by knees or parents. I wish only that my spirit and fury would drive me to hack your meat away and to eat it raw for the things that you have done to me. So there is no one who can hold the dogs off from your head, not if they bring here and set before me 10 times and 20 times the ransom, and promise more in addition. Not if Priam, son of Dardanus, should offer to weigh out your bulk in gold. Not even so shall the lady, your mother, who herself bore you, lay you on the deathbed and mourn you. No, but the dogs and the birds will have you all for their feasting." Then, dying, Hector of the shining helmet spoke to him, "I know you well as I look upon you. I know that I could not persuade you, since indeed in your breast is a heart of iron. Be careful now, for I might be made into the gods' curse upon you, on that day when Paris and Phoebus Apollo destroy you in the sky and gates, for all your valor."
He spoke, and as he spoke, the end of death closed in upon him, and the soul, fluttering free of the limbs, went down into death's house, mourning her destiny, leaving youth and manhood behind her. Now, though he was a dead man, brilliant Achilles spoke to him, "Die, and I will take my own death at whatever time Zeus and the rest of the immortals choose to accomplish it." He spoke and pulled the brazen spear from the body, and laid it on one side, and stripped away from the shoulders the bloody armour. And the other sons of the Achaeans came running about him, and gazed upon the stature and on the imposing beauty of Hector. And none stood beside him who did not stab him. And thus they would speak to one another, each looking at his neighbour. "See now, Hector is much softer to handle than he was when he set the ships ablaze with the burning firebrand." So as they stood beside him, they would speak and stab him. But now, when he had despoiled the body, swift-footed, brilliant Achilles stood among the Achaeans and addressed them in winged words. "Friends, who are leaders of the Argives and keep their counsel, since the gods have granted me the killing of this man who has done us much damage, such as not all the others together have done, come, let us go and armour about the city, to see if we can find out what purpose is in the Trojans, whether they will abandon their high city, now this man has fallen, or are minded to stay, though Hector lives no longer. Yet still, why does the heart within me debate on these things? There is a dead man who lies by the ships, unwept, unburied, Patroclus, and I will not forget him, never so long as I remain among the living, and my knees have their spring beneath me. And though the dead forget the dead in the house of Hades, even then I shall still remember my beloved companion. But now, you young men of the Achaeans, let us go back, singing a victory song to our hollow ships, and take this with us. We have won ourselves enormous fame. We have killed the great Hector, whom the Trojans glorified as if he were a god in their city.
He spoke, and now thought of shameful treatment for glorious Hector. In both of his feet at the back he made holes by the tendons in the space between ankle and heel, and drew thongs of oxhide through them, and fastened them to the chariot so as to let the head drag, and mounted the chariot and rigged the glorious armour inside it. Then whipped the horses to a run, and they winged their way, unreluctant. A cloud of dust rose where Hector was dragged. His dark hair was falling about him, and all that head that was once so handsome was tumbled in the dust, since by this time Zeus had given him over to his enemies to be defiled in the land of his fathers. So all his head was dragged in the dust. And now his mother tore out her hair, and threw the shining veil far from her, and raised a great wail as she looked upon her son. And his father beloved groaned pitifully, and all his people about him were taken with wailing and lamentation all through the city. It was most like what would have happened if all lowering Iliad had been burning top to bottom in fire. His people could scarcely keep the old man and his impatience from storming out of the Dardanian gates. He implored them all and wallowed in the mud before calling upon each man and naming it by his name. Give way, dear friends, and let me alone, though you care for me. Leave me to go out from the city and make my way to the ships of the Achaeans. I must be suppliant to this man who is harsh and violent, and he might have respect for my age and take pity upon it, since I am old, and his father also is old as I am. Peleus, who begot and reared him, to be an affliction on the Trojans. He has given us most sorrow beyond all others, such is the number of my flowering sons he has cut down. But for all of these I mourn not so much in spite of my sorrow as for one, Hector, and the sharp grief for him will carry me downward into death's house. I wish he had died in my arms, for that way we two, I myself and his mother who bore him unhappy, might so have glutted ourselves with weeping for him and mourning.
Ose fato clanoi, evides de na honto politai, pro esin de hecaber adinu ex erge boio, tecnu nego de le, tinu beo mai aina pathusa, seu apotechneotos, o moi nuktas de kai enar, uhole kata astu, Peleskero, pasite onea trosi de kai troesi catapolin, poise theon hoste decat. Egar kai svi malamera kudos, enestas doos eon, nun au thanatos kai moira kichanei.
Hose fatu claris, alogos tu porti pepusto hectoris. Ugar hoi tis eternumus angelus elphon, hegel hotira hoi prosis ex ectosi, mimneculaon. Alheg histon hufaine, mucroi domu, upseroloi. Diplaca porthureien, en dethrona poikile passe. Kepleto damphropiloi sim, Euplocamois catadoma, ampipuis desai, tripodomegan, hofrepeloito hectori thermaloet anaces, ecnos desanti, nepier, udenoesen homimala teriloetron, persin Achilleus damase glaucopis Athene.
Hocutu vecus e cae in moges apurtu, purtu. Teste moisi veteuda. Täytte tuomoi epeton, idom hostin ergate tuktai, adoies hekores oppos e kluon en demoiate steestai. Alatai eton anastona, nerte taduna peguntai. Engus tetikakon priammoja tekesin. Aigara toanetos ei epos. Aname ainos teido me de moi trasun hectora dios cadeus munnon apotexas folios de bionde tierra. Caiden min catapad passei genoies cadenes gemin ex pei utapeni letum menenandron ala polu protege tu on menos udeni ecum.
So she spoke, and ran out of the house like a raving woman with pulsing heart, and her 2 handmaidens went along with her. But when she came to the bastion and where the men were gathered, she stopped, staring on the wall, and she saw him being dragged in front of the city, and the running horses dragged him at random toward the hollow ships of the Achaeans. The darkness of night misted over the eyes of Andromache. She fell backward and gasped life's breath out of her. And far off threw from her head the shining gear that ordered her headdress, the diadem and the cap, and the holding band woven together, and the circlet which Aphrodite the goddess had given her on that day when Hector of the shining helmet led her forth from the house of Aetion, and gave her numberless gifts to win her. And about her stood, thronging her husband's sisters and the wives of his brothers, and these in her despair for death held her up among them. But she, when she breathed again and the life was gathered back into her, lifted her voice among the women of Troy in mourning. Hector, I grieve for you. You and I are born to a single destiny, you and Troy in the house of Priam, and I in Thebe, under the timbered mountain of Phacos, in the house of Aetion, who cared for me when I was little, ill-fated he, and I ill-starred. I wish he had never forgotten me. Now you go down into the house of death, in the secret places of the earth, and left me here behind in the sorrow of mourning, a widow in your house, and the boy is only a baby, who was born to you and me, the unfortunate. You cannot help him, Hector, any more since you are dead, nor can he help you. Though he escapes the attack of the Achaeans with all its sorrows, yet all his days, for your sake, there will be hard work for him in sorrows, for others will take away his lands from him. The day of bereavement leaves a child with no age mates to befriend him. He bows his head before every man, his cheeks are bewet. He goes, needy, a boy among his father's companions, and tugs at this man by the mantle, that man by the tunic, and they pity him. And one gives him a tiny drink from a goblet, enough to moisten his lips, but not enough to moisten his palate. But one whose parents are living beats him out of the banquet, hitting him with his fists, and in words also abuses him. Get out, you. Your father is not dining among us. And the boy goes away in tears to his widowed mother, Astyanax, who in days before on the knees of his father would only eat the marrow of the flesh of sheep that was fattest. And when sleep would come upon him and he was done with his playing, he would go to sleep in a bed in the arms of his nurse, in a soft bed, with his heart given all its fill of luxury. Now, with his dear father gone, he has much to suffer. He, whom the Trojans had called Astyanax, lord of the city, since it was you alone who defended the gates and the long walls. But now, beside the curving ships, far away from your parents, the writhing worms will feed, when the dogs have had enough of you on your naked corpse. Though in your house there is clothing laid up that is fine textured and pleasant, wrought by the hands of women, but all of these I will burn up in fires blazing. No use to you, since you will never be laid away in them, but in your honour, from the men of Troy and the Trojan women. So she spoke in tears, and the women joined her in her mourning.
I think you agree.